Sometimes we decode the show. Hidden Easter eggs, lines to know. Three friends laughing, munching snacks. Lois and Clark, we're always coming back. Ooh,
I'm Molly.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Jen.
And welcome to Folks Forever, a Lois and Clark rewatch podcast.
We're three fans who've been loving LNC since 1993.
Each week we'll recap one episode and talk about at least one LNC related topic.
If you would like to learn more about who we are, how we became folks, or how we became friends, check out our intro episode. Today we're going to be discussing Season 1, Episode 3, Strange Visitor from Another Planet. You'll find this as Episode 2 on the DVDs and streaming, but chronologically it's Episode 3. We'll also be talking about LNC's first season ratings, plus Julie has a special report for us all about Lucy Lane and Jimmy Olsen. Strange Visitor first aired on September 26, 1993. Just to paint you a picture of the time, hit songs on the radio included Dream Lover by Mariah Carey, Can't Help Falling in Love by UB40, and Whoop, There It Is by Tag Team.
I loved that. Mariah Carey, the Dream Lover song. That song right now is stuck in my head just because you just said that.
At the recent Emmy Awards, Seinfeld took an award home for Outstanding Comedy Series, and I thought that was neat because that was the season that Teri was just on. And at those same awards, Dean and Teri made an appearance. They announced the winners of the awards for Best Guest Actor and Actress in a Comedy Series. And I will never claim to have been a cool teenager, but back in 1993, Disney Adventures magazine asked a bunch of middle schoolers in North Carolina about what things were in or cool. And they answered clothes, cross colors, New Jordans, Daisy Dukes, slang, You Go Girl, and Hittin' Hard, books, anything by Stephen King or Christopher Pike, the TV shows Martin, and also Liquid Television. And I had to look that one up because, again, I didn't have cable back then. And that was the MTV programming block that included Beavis and Butthead. In music included Pearl Jam, Jodeci, and REM. On the other hand, things that were out in fall of 93 or totally uncool by that point included Neon Colors, Acid Wash, Baja Shorts, Sweet Valley High Books, Melrose Place, Saturday Night Live, apparently, Metallica, Marky Mark, Guns N' Roses. So, I don't know.
What?
Marky
I was
Mark.
not cool, apparently.
Marky Mark, yeah. I completely forgot about the Christopher Pike books. I was obsessed with those books.
They were good. They were little mysteries.
They were good.
All right, before we get into our more detailed discussion of Strange Visitor, we'll be giving our very own summaries in 16 words or less. And we'll start with Jen.
So my summary is Lois wants to kiss Clark goodbye before getting thrown from a plane. They kiss. I squee.
Nice. I knew that would be your plot point too.
That's all. That's all that matters.
All right, my summary is a phony warrant leads Clark to his alien origin and a federal agent who wants him dead.
Nice.
Mine is Clark finds a Kryptonian artifact, pockets it, then jumps out of a plane with it. Just so
I would have
wild.
taken it too.
I like it.
I still don't know how it
totally
survived.
fallen.
What?
That would have fallen out of his pocket for sure. That wasn't staying in his pocket.
Yeah. Well, and then he has to.
Yeah,
Sorry,
somehow
brain.
it went into his pocket, and then they all get like taken. Well, we can talk about that when it comes up. So it's so wild, though.
Yeah. That's where I was going to. I was like, why am I bringing it up here? We'll talk about that later.
Every LNC episode had a title. Sometimes the titles would be a play on words or a reference to an old movie or song. Strange Visitor from Another Planet, like Neverending Battle, our previous episode, was part of the opening spiel from the 1950s Adventures of Superman TV series. So, yes, Clark is our strange visitor, and as we know, or at least we're going to know by the end of this episode, he is from another planet. But also this episode does introduce us to Jason Trask, and he's pretty strange himself.
He is strange, but I liked him. I think he is one of the top villains in the show, actually.
Yeah. He's smart, but almost not quite smart enough.
And I like him as an actor, too. Guest stars for this episode are once again Elizabeth Barondes, who played Lucy, Joseph Campanella played George Thompson, and he was in Mannix, The Invaders. He did soaps such as The Bold and the Beautiful and a Dynasty spinoff called The Colbys. He did the voices for National Geographic specials. And on Broadway, he did Captain and the Kings, Hotspot, Born Yesterday, and The Cain Mutiny. George Murdoch played Burton Newcomb. He was in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and the movie Orange County. And Terrence Knox played Jason Trask. He is best known for Saint Elsewhere, Tour of Duty, The Best Years Gone, and The Pretender. And last but not least, David St. James was the polygraph technician. He went on to do some pretty cool projects and is best known for The West Wing, iCarly, and Shameless. Some other credits include Days of Our Lives, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, NYPD Blue, Step by Step, ER, Seinfeld, Melrose Place, Chicago Hope, and the list is so long. I'm just going to cut it off here, but there were so many shows that he did. It was crazy.
For me, this was one of those episodes that I did not see during the original run. I saw it a few years later, probably early 96, when another folk sent me a tape of it. And I already knew the plot because of reading episode guides, but there were still some surprises. I remember thinking that Clark seemed really insecure in this episode. He just seems like, newbie in the planet, newbie in Metropolis, acting kind of meek at times. And Kat definitely steamrolls over him. And I had already seen some of the later first season episodes where Kat's a little less aggressive. So I remember that her intensity here was a little bit surprising to me.
For me, this is the episode where I fell in love with the show. My grandpa used to have Parkinson's, and so I'd often go over to my grandma and grandpa's house to grandpa sit while my grandma would run errands and stuff. And I was only 13, but basically I just stayed at my grandpa's house with him to make sure nothing happened. But I'm pretty sure I had recorded this episode and rewatched it on that following Saturday on repeat. And I remember bringing my tape over and watching it over and over, especially the part on the airplane. And I don't know, I guess this was just kind of the beginning for me. I remember Trask and loving him as the villain. I remember just sitting in their living room and in front of the TV and overthinking everything, wondering if they were going to fall in love soon, as if I didn't have any concept of how slow this show would go. This episode pulled me in, and I can pretty much say this is probably the episode that made me fall in love with the show.
Yeah, for me, I don't really have any real memories other than being super excited about the first kiss and rewatching, obviously, that scene a lot as a kid.
All right, well, let's get into the episode. We open on the Daily Planet newsroom. Clark's typing and Lois comes over to check out what he's doing. It turns out Clark is writing a story about adoptees searching for their birth parents. Lois indicates that she basically wrote this exact same story 3 years ago, to which Clark responds,
"There are no old stories, Lois, just new
angles."
Thank you.
Lois then wonders aloud why adoptees are so eager to find their birth families. If the birth parents didn't care enough to raise them, she says, why bother? And Clark says, if they gave you up, they must have had a reason. And it's that not knowing that kills you. And I like this scene because it's a quick nod to the audience, reminding us of the fact that Clark is adopted. So he's probably just stating his actual feelings here.
Do we think that Lois knew that he was adopted at this point?
I
Would
don't
he have
think
told her?
so. I think the fact that he's speaking from the heart is completely lost on her. I don't think she knows at this point.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, I don't think there's ever an indication of when he tells her that, whether it's after he's like, oh, I'm Superman. And by the way, my parents are elsewhere. Right. The other thing I like about this scene is it's showing us, kind of reminding us how Clark's approach to journalism, comparing it against Lois's, his writing style is always compared to hers, more sensitive, empathetic, even a little bit more cautious. And Lois is always more bold and kind of just puts it all out there without holding back, for better or for worse. And later when they're full partners, it's such a great dynamic because, they're both great writers, but they have different sensibilities about how to get it done and how to get it all on the page. And so, going forward, we're going to get a lot of banter about and arguing where they're challenging each other. And of course, in the end, they're bringing out the best in each other. So Lois goes back to her desk, and then Jimmy approaches her and starts talking to her about her sister Lucy. And he kind of wants to ask Lois's permission to ask Lucy out. And Lois gives him a bit of a hard time, but then is like, or she's joking. And then she says, it's fine. Go ahead. Go for it. And just then the elevator doors open and out come a bunch of dudes in suits. And the main guy is Jason Trask. We won't learn his name till later, but I'm just going to go ahead and use it. And he says he has a warrant issued by federal courts, and he wants to talk to Lois Lane and Clark Kent. He is looking for Superman.
I want Superman, and I'm not leaving here until you tell me where I can find him.
Before we go on, did he just call out Clark, or did he call out both Lois and Clark?
Both.
Oh, he
Both,
did.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I don't remember if it's explicitly said, but it's implied or somehow. So back in Neverending Battle, Clark wrote a Superman story where he apparently talked to Superman and got a quote. Sure. And in the pilot, Lois had an encounter with Superman and was saved by him, and she wrote a story. So Trask has seen both of these stories and is like, you two, you must know something.
Right.
I want Superman, and I'm not leaving here until you tell me where I can find him.
And we cut to the opening credits. So we're back from the opening credits, and Lois and Clark are sequestered in a Daily Planet conference room while Jason Trask and his cronies are like, I don't know, arguing with Perry out in the main room. And Lois is watching everything through a window while Clark is absolutely just sitting there like totally relaxed at this moment. He's blowing around like a piece of paper with his super breath, and then he lets it drop in a wastebasket, and Lois sees this.
Yes. What the heck?
He just blatantly uses his powers.
Yes, this dude.
Constantly just doing stupid things.
Why?
Because he hasn't learned yet that it's really hard making excuses, and he better not keep pushing it.
He's not very careful.
But before her brain can work out what's just happened, Perry comes in, distracting her, and tells Lois and Clark that Jason Trask wants them to take a polygraph test regarding their knowledge of Superman. This succeeds in freaking Clark out. He says, no way. Perry says, no, it's fine. You don't have to take the polygraph test. After all, Trask is already going to take your computers and your notes. But as soon as he says that, Lois starts freaking out. They can't take her computer. Everything she's ever thought of or written is on there. Her novel. Lois's novel will be back. There aren't a lot of small threads that span multiple Lois and Clark seasons, so I do appreciate it when we do get one. Lois's novel gets mentioned here, again later in the episode, again in Green Ring Glow of Home. I feel like I told you guys this. I feel like there's another mention of it somewhere in between. And then it comes roaring back in season 3, at which point I just hate the darn novel and wish it never existed. But props for continuity.
That is correct.
So Perry, Lois, and Clark go back and forth about whether or not they'll do the polygraph test. Clark is adamant he is not sitting for this. But Lois says, why shouldn't we do this? I mean, it'll get them to leave us alone, and we don't even know enough about Superman to lie. Do we? And Clark very reluctantly finally agrees to take the test, I guess to get any possible suspicion off of him from Lois. Lois ends up going first, taking this polygraph test, while Clark waits outside the conference room, but he's listening. And as Jason Trask asks Lois questions, it's very, very clear, if in case you didn't already know, that Lois has a thing for Superman.
Does Superman have any telepathic powers?
I hope not.
Blushing like crazy, talking about Superman.
You have a romantic attachment to Superman? Yes or no?
No.
Then it's Clark's turn, and this man is sweating. Oh my gosh. To calibrate the machine, Trask asks Clark if his name is Clark Kent, and Clark says yes. And then Trask asks, are you also Superman? And Clark is supposed to answer yes, but when he does, it doesn't register as a lie. So So Trask and the polygraph operator are like, weird. They ask the question again, and Clark answers the same way, but this time he uses his super breath to make the machine register it as a lie.
Can Superman sweat?
Yes, that's actually another thing I was going to bring up at some point. This is something his physiology He doesn't sweat when he's hot, but he does sweat when he is nervous or under duress. And it comes up in other episodes.
What? Okay.
Yes.
I had no idea.
But boy, you could really see it in
Mhm.
HD. They like spray bottled that guy.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
my
you
gosh.
can. I did
Nervous.
catch that you can have another mark on your bingo card, Molly, when the technician was like, either the machine's broken again or this reporter's so mild-mannered.
So as Clark is going through this test, he gets so nervous, he starts to float and makes the chair go up, and nobody notices this. But okay, so I noticed in the script that the effect was supposed to be that he breaks the chair and then has to hold himself up. And I even remember seeing a behind the scenes photo of this being filmed where Dean is like holding himself up. But this
Yeah,
isn't
where
what
he's
is
like
portrayed in the
floating.
yeah, this isn't what is shown in the episode
Mm-mm.
though. So that was always
No.
confusing to me.
Same.
Yeah, the
I
script
wrote why
definitely had it. Yeah.
why did he float up and then slam the chair back down? I have never understood that part.
The script implies he does something to the chair because he's so nervous. But
Yeah, like he's wrapping his feet around the chair because he's so nervous. Then he breaks the chair legs completely off in the script. And then he has to kind of support himself like by floating so they don't notice. But they
Okay.
definitely don't do that.
they don't. This effect is just weird and confusing. But yeah, all we know is he floats again, and why they don't see him, I do not know. So Clark gets asked a couple more questions, all about Superman and if he can possibly contact Superman. And Clark's just trying to avoid their questions. And then another henchman comes in and tells Trask the perimeter's been penetrated. So all the bad guys, they get out of there real quick. They even leave some of their equipment behind.
Can I say real quick, while Trask was leaning over, I noticed his tie and I wondered if he rated Clark's tie collection because it's really weird looking. It's like blue plaid with some hay looking boxes all over. And I was like, that looks like a Clark tie almost because
They all
it's
shop at the
random.
same store, apparently. So as Lois and Clark come out of the conference room, we hear Perry telling someone to get legal on this right away, which is like, Perry, why were you doing that like an hour ago? But then Perry tells Lois and Clark they need to get out of there because they should go into hiding so that if Trask comes back, they can't be served with subpoenas. And he tells them to wear their beepers and that he'll be in touch. And I wanted to say something about beepers here. One is that this is the first time I think they've been mentioned on the show, but they will be back quite a bit in the next 2 seasons. And secondly, did you guys ever have a beeper or have experience with that at all? That was like such a 90s thing.
It's a very 90s thing, but I did not have one.
Yeah, we were a little
I wanted
young.
one. I wanted one, but I didn't have one.
Yeah, I didn't have one either, but I feel like all the cool kids did.
My dad had one. He was a repair technician. So this was like the same era, 93, 94. And all it did was his company could call him and leave their number and it would flash across the little thing. And then he would call them back to get where he needed to go next. So occasionally my brother and I would use it to get him to call the house in case we had a question or something. But that was it. And then by the time I was old enough to have one, cell phones were cheap. So we just got a cell phone instead. Kat comes up to Clark and tells him that since he can't go home, tonight's the perfect night to have dinner at her place. And Clark is like, okay, even though I don't know why. Clark could literally go anywhere in the dang world. But he goes over to the apartment of someone who's been harassing him for the past week or two. Why?
Maybe she's changed.
I think he's thinking that, but no.
Maybe.
He
Or to
sees
get
the
him to
good in
shut up
people.
about it, maybe.
He does go with her, and Kat's apartment is a lot more subdued than Clark is expecting. Yes, sure, there's a nude statue by the door, but there's also a lot of hardback books, and the place seems nice. She does a little tease about him seeing the bedroom and then is like, I'm just kidding. Well, then they have a drink and they're chatting. And then just as Kat is starting to get a little bit too close physically, Clark's beeper goes off and he jumps up and he uses Kat's phone to call the Daily Planet. Well, while he's on the phone, Kat turns on some loud drum music. And a minute later, she snatches the phone away from Clark. At this point, Lois is on the other end. And Kat says something to the effect of, Clark's busy right now. You need to give him a moment to freshen up. Clark is so embarrassed. And he's just looking at Kat like, seriously? Why did you have to do that? We were having a nice time.
Yeah.
You were acting normal for like 5 minutes. Ugh.
I like that it made Lois kind of jealous, though. What she did was awful and stupid, and I still don't like her, but it made Lois jealous, and that made me happy. Also, I really liked her outfit. She looks good in like jeans and a sweatshirt.
Oh
I thought that
yeah,
was
Kat
endearing
changed
to,
into clothes she thought Clark would
yeah.
like, having been from Kansas. She puts on a sweatshirt and jeans.
I thought it was a good look for her. I think it was probably a smart tactic to try to get him to like her, but then she messed that up because she played the bongo drums.
And if she had just
Did
been
y'all-
doing it right here to mess with Lois for like 2 seconds, I wouldn't have minded it so much. But then she keeps it up. So we'll get there though.
Yeah. Did y'all notice the little Easter egg in her closet?
No.
No. Uh-uh.
There was on one of her outfits, there was this like dry cleaner hanger and that had like two little penguins and one was wearing a little hat. It's the same hanger that was hanging in Catwoman's closet in Batman Returns. So
Deep.
Oh,
I thought that was kind of interesting
wow.
for Catwoman. Cat and
Cat.
Catwoman.
Cat. Oh, okay. I'm
Like,
connecting it.
oh,
Nice.
okay.
That's cool. It's also cool because that's like when she's going into her closet, that's the classic opening sequence for Tracy,
Right.
which I
Mhm.
loved. So good.
Back at the Daily Planet, we learned that Jason Trask's warrant was a phony and that he and his cronies are unknown to all the government agencies that they have contacted, or at least no one wants to claim them. So now Lois and Clark are set on figuring out who these guys were and why they were so interested in Superman. The next day at the planet, rumors are flying about Clark and Kat, and it's implied that Kat's the one who is spreading them. Jimmy comes up to Clark all impressed, like, you and Kat got it on last night, haha, and even asks Clark for relationship advice. And poor Clark is so annoyed and uncomfortable, but we do get some very cute little eye rolls out of it. And I honestly think this is some good acting right here.
When Kat comes in and kisses Clark on the cheek, I still think that there needs to be an HR, like a human resources department in the Daily Planet, because obviously he's uncomfortable. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it through a
No.
2025 lens, but I felt really bad for him.
It's totally
Clark.
awkward.
Yeah.
Poor Clark.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a 1993-ness of it where the audience would have found this kind of amusing because it was sort of gender swapped from what you'd normally see with a male usually harassing a female in the workplace at the time. I mean, we still get that now, but that was a little more prevalent. Also, the fact that, Clark's the most powerful guy in the world, and yet he can be disarmed by the actions of this person. And so we know he has vulnerabilities. It's kind of funny to see him be sort of stressed by this. But again, it's also not good. And we do not like sexual harassment, no matter who
Yeah.
it's coming from and who it's directed towards.
I don't remember being offended by it back then when I was a kid. I probably just thought it was funny, but now watching it, it's a little bit awkward. But it's also still fun. Like I can relate to my old self and still chuckle.
Yeah, it's still funny.
Yeah.
So now we are at where a man is on the phone, basically yelling at Trask, saying he's there to clean up his mess. He tells Trask to stay where he is and he'll come over as soon as he's buried the story. Lois and Clark enter. Introductions happen. We find out that his name is George Thompson. He tells them that his job is to get to the bottom of the incident at the planet, gather all eyewitness accounts, etc., etc. Basically what Lois and Clark are also doing. As they talk, Clark uses his x-ray vision to see inside of a briefcase that's sitting on the desk. Inside, he sees a folder that is titled Smallville, Kansas, 1966. Uh-oh. Lois
Oh.
realizes she's going to learn absolutely nothing from this man and gets up to leave. Clark makes an excuse that's very lame and that he's not feeling well, and they agree to separate. Lois decides to follow the guy when she sees him leave the building, and she follows him to a furniture warehouse. So there is a little Easter egg here. anyone else catch the warehouse name?
I mean, yes, but I don't know what it's a reference to. I thought you might know.
Basolo discount used office furniture. They've been throwing out names throughout these first few episodes. This one is a nod to George Reeves, who, as we know, played Superman in the 50s. His stage name was Reeves, but his actual adopted last name was Basolo. So there you go. Little
Wow.
Easter egg.
That's cool.
So yeah, thought that was pretty cool. So back to Thompson and Trask, who are inside the warehouse. Trask says it's his mission to identify alien threats, believes Superman is one, and wants to kill him. Thompson basically says he's paranoid and orders him to turn over his command, but Trask is like, I will not submit, I will not be shut down, and ends up assaulting him.
This guy, I have the authority. Trask smack.
Boom! Smack right across the face. Okay. I think he's serious. So Clark flies home to Smallville. He wants to know.
I want to hear everything you know about how you found me. Everything.
Jonathan recalls the events of Clark's arrival on May 17th, 1966. We basically already know the story. They saw something shoot across the sky. They found him, took him home. Some scary men showed up, questioning a few days later about possible debris from a Russian satellite. They didn't tell him anything because they thought that, they were scary and they wanted that baby. Martha wanted that baby. Let's be real. She wasn't giving it up.
I thought the casting for Jonathan Kent was like the young Jonathan Kent was amazing. It was so good. He looked like him.
It wasn't bad. At least they didn't use him and try to make him look younger. Like, they did in a future episode. Even though I love that episode, but
when they're looking for the spaceship in that flashback scene, do you know where that was filmed? Was that on the Warner Brothers lot?
I'm assuming it's over by the swamp, but I don't know. Like, I don't know for sure. But there's lots of woods back in that area, so probably. So Clark wonders if they think he's a Russian experiment, but Martha says,
Oh, honey, we don't care if you're a Russian or a Martian. You were ours. That's all we knew. We weren't giving you away to anybody.
Aw.
The scene.
As far as I know, she's so cute.
And the music that's playing, and
he's so sad. And as far as Martha knew, Jonathan went back to the spaceship and destroyed it, but of course he didn't. So what do? They go out to the woods to find the ship. Now, my question is, Clark is like 27, right? In this episode? Is this the first time they've really talked in depth about this? Like, was Jonathan never going to say, hey, I've got your ship? He's 27.
Good point. 27 years later. Oh, by the way.
I don't know. Do you think Jonathan was scared of Martha? Like the fact that he said he would do this and he didn't. He's like, oh man, maybe I'm gonna have to admit this.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he didn't want to admit that he didn't do what he said he did.
I mean, I guess it wouldn't have mattered considering what we're about to find out.
Yeah,
that's true. Like when was it? But anyway, they have this heartfelt hug and talk about, she knows that it must be hard for him, and he's like,
it's hard, Mom, is not knowing. Mom, you and Dad, you're my parents, you know that. No one will ever replace you.
But then he questions if he's even human. So they find the spot. Clark starts digging down into the ground and floats back up with nothing. It's been stolen. Dun, dun, dun. Spaceship gone.
Instead of just x-raying the ground, he's like, just goes straight down for it.
They're probably
the same thing.
Yeah, they're probably just trying to show off as many different types of superpowers that he can do. I don't know. I wonder that too.
Yeah, it's way more dramatic how he did it, but also so unnecessary. It's so dirty.
I loved
and he
it
didn't
when
even take off his glasses. So his glasses had to have been like, no, not till after.
Oh,
and I'm like, his glasses would be broken after digging down into the earth.
The aura scratched to his glasses.
The aura. There you go. It protected it.
I wish I had an aura for these. Sheesh.
I remember thinking it was real cute when he shook off the dirt and stuff, though, because
like a dog.
And then took the glasses off. I know. Maybe that's why.
Because
Were
it's
there
a
any
dog.
dogs in this episode? Were there any dog-like behavior in this episode?
It was Clark. It was the part where Clark shook it off.
Shook.
He
Shook off the dirt.
Shake, Clark. Shake, shake.
So as per your question,
Good Clark.
when
Good
did
Clark.
the ship actually get taken? I think it was taken pretty early on. Two things is one, somebody says later like that they got out of the business in 1969. I think it kind of probably happened around 66 to 69 that the ship was dug up. But it is strange that they dug up an entire ship, but then didn't further harass Martha or Jonathan about, or any of the neighbors about the whole thing. So
Yeah, like who buried it? Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
They had to know somebody buried it.
Did they just not notice or see anyone on the property digging a massive spaceship out of the ground?
Well, it wasn't their property.
Or
it was nearby, sort of
Yeah.
a place nobody really used. Oh, that's another thing. The name changed. Yeah, in this one they say Jonathan calls it Simpson's Quarry, and then in Tempest Fugitive it's Schuster's Field, which I know is an honor to Joe Schuster, but also I was wondering if maybe they didn't want it to be called Simpson's Quarry because the whole O.J. Simpson thing
O.J.
happened in between.
Simpson.
Yeah. Maybe that could be.
Oh, I bet that's it.
I have a little trivia for you two. This is not the only time we'll see a weird super digging skill. Can either of you recall another episode this was used in? Or similar?
There's one where he like goes to the center of the earth for some reason. I want to say it's like Chip Off the Old Clark.
He has to dig through the ground to catch something in like Japan, to stop a thing in Japan.
Ooh, you both kind of the same. He digs down to like China and Chip Off the Old Clark.
Which is
Same thing now.
ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Just destroy the earth there, Clark. That doesn't affect it at all. Just digging a hole down the middle.
Between that and him just throwing things into space, bombing microwaves, just throwing everything up there. I mean, like, Clark, think about things.
Which episode was it where he was like, you're telling me or something, when they were saying that there was a bunch of stuff floating around in space? Remember that? What episode was that? He was like, I
contributed to that.
Yeah, it was all his fault, mostly all that crap that's thrown up there.
Yeah, it's like late
I
season
don't remember
3.
that.
He's like, you're telling me or something.
Yep. I had a list going one time of, and I found it the other day. I had one list of all the things he'd thrown up to space. I had a list of like every time food was mentioned on Lois and Clark for some reason. And
oh my goodness.
I also had a list going of actors who appeared on Lois and Clark twice, but as two different characters, like Leslie Jordan when he does that.
Leslie Jordan.
Yeah. So I'll put those in our notes if we may need them. I don't know why we would need the food, but
we definitely need the food one.
I want the one where the actors come in twice.
Yeah.
I like that one.
We're going to get quite a bunch of those.
There's a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Starting in our next episode. Yeah.
Or actors that have been replaced with somebody else.
There's that too, and that's a whole nother thing. Lois's entire family.
So the only one that stays is Lois. The next day, Clark is flipping through old archived microfilms in the Daily Planet, I guess, library is what the script says. After seeing that folder earlier and now his missing ship, Clark now knows there's probably some kind of connection. He stops on an old UFO sighting article with a photo of several Air Force officers, one of whom is Trask as a young man. Lois joins him and asks what Clark has dug up. Clark responds with a somber nothing. I love when the show does these little double meanings. Sometimes it takes me multiple times to view and catch these things, but like where she says dug up, he literally dug up nothing last night. There was no ship. So I was like, oh, Clark, you really did dig up nothing. Lois glances at what he's looking at and basically laughs it off as old news. Clark lies and says that it was just a hunch that didn't pan out. But Lois looks back at the photo on the screen and recognizes Trask in it. And she says,
almost missed that one, rookie.
Back at the planet, Lois and Clark have found literally nothing on Trask. He's disappeared. But Lois sees that another man in the photo lives in Metropolis, a retired General Burton Newcomb. They now have another lead. So Clark goes to his desk to retrieve his jacket, and Kat is basically just sitting there on it because she heard that he wanted to talk. He wants her to put a stop on all the rumors floating around, but she doesn't want to ruin her reputation and openly flirts, dragging her hands down his neck and chest as Perry is watching in the background, frowning. Perry goes, I need to see you in my office. He's in trouble. Enter Elvis story number 2. We are only in episode 3, and we are on Elvis story number 2 from Perry about the importance of picking the right woman. The wrong woman could hurt your career. I don't think I need to go into the Elvis story. Blah, blah, blah. Lois comes in, says Thompson was found dead in the Metropolis Harbor. Shocker, we all knew that was coming. Trask killed him.
I don't know, you just slapped him. How is it? Well, okay. Thompson was trying to stop Trask from doing his Bureau 39. They're both in Bureau 39, but Trask has kind of gone rogue. Am I right?
Yep.
And Thompson was trying to curb, saying, Superman's fine. You don't need to go after him. And Trask didn't like that, so he had to eliminate this guy.
He's
This
in
is
the
where I
harbor.
zone.
He'd be dead.
This is where you zone out.
This is where I zone out because I've never followed the villain storylines super closely. I'm just like, oh, the bad guy.
There's a lot of old men in this episode, and they all do
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I had to watch this scene several times because I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about the bad guys ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they
For
go
real.
to the General Newcomb's place. They tell him that they're investigating his old friend Trask. Newcomb says that they took an oath. So he has a secret that's eaten away at him. Basically, he wants to help them, but he doesn't want to admit to helping them, is basically what's happening in this scene. He completely crushes Lois's tape that was in her tape recorder. So there's no evidence of him helping them at all. He basically tells them that Trask is going to be hiding in plain sight, but the problem will be security, which apparently he designed, which is very coincidental, I guess. That's a good thing. They found the right person. So he opens up his desk drawer and pulls out a security card that says 3-9. And places it on the corner of the desk. He says they will need to find someone that found a man like Trask to be so repugnant, his methods so un-American, that they would in fact choose to help him. So basically, that's him. He's going to help him. He turns his back, gun in hand, and says he's going to count to 3. And when he turns around, they better be gone. Lois and Clark look at each other. Is it a trap? Is it an opportunity? Lois quickly takes the security card and they leave. Cut to the warehouse. The card worked to get in the first door, but uh-oh, they're locked in. A timer starts at 39 seconds. Coincidence? I think not. Again with the 39. It starts to tick down. They added a second security system since the General's day, a combination lock. Clark immediately tries to guess the combination using his super hearing so he can hear the tumblers falling into place. Lois is like, what the heck are you doing? But he gets it right just as the timer clicks to 7. Lois is stunned, but Clark just explains it off, saying, well, the General said August 2nd, 1947, the date that Bureau 39 was founded. 8 right, 2 left, 47 right. Lois says,
You are so weird. Works for you, though.
So Lois and Clark walk into the building and they start snooping around. Clark is saying that they shouldn't be there. He says, I don't know about this, Lois. Where is everybody? And she's like, well, the thing about luck is you just don't question it. So they continue to search through files, and Lois pulls out a photo of a UFO with beams shooting out, and she starts laughing, and she's just making fun of everything. And meanwhile, Clark is over there looking at papers and starting to really think, oh my gosh, that these photos look real. Lois replies that they're too good and that it has to be a setup. And she continues to mock their findings. He goes, you were the one that said if it looks like a duck. And as he says that, he opens a file and he pulls out one labeled Smallville 1966. Lois walks over, questioning him because he just said the quote about if it looks like a duck, which she said in the privacy of her lie detector test. And she goes, "How did you know I said that anyway?" And he shoves the file back down really quickly so that she can't see it, and he pushes her out of the way. And I don't know about you guys, but I remember thinking that was so funny. And so she goes, "What are you doing?" And she turns to him and he goes, "Well, you didn't like their pictures, so let's just see what else they have." Did you guys have any opinions on him like kind of shoving her out of the way? Or I remember as a kid thinking, "Oh my gosh, they touched," which is the next best thing.
Uh,
I don't know.
well, he doesn't want her to see a Smallville file because she knows already that
Mhm.
he's from Smallville and that would pique her interest. But
Exactly.
he does kind of go overboard, like pushing him out. She's like, what the?
Surprised she didn't fly to the other side of the building.
That would have been hilarious.
Whoops.
But we don't want him to hurt Lois.
True. So Lois continues on and says, "I suppose I'm going to lift up one of these tarps and find a UFO." And Clark is like, "I don't know what we're going to find." So she lifts one up and thinks it's ridiculous, and she's calling it an unidentified salvage yard. And meanwhile, Clark is thinking they're onto something and that these UFOs are quite real. And that's when CK sees a sheet covering a very large object. And so he walks over and he pulls it off. It is what appears to be a spaceship covered in dirt with a weird symbols engraved on the side of the ship. And he runs his hands over them, taking it all in, dusting off the dirt. And then he uncovers the S shield. Aha, we have found the spaceship that Jonathan and Martha found him in. So he looks back at Lois, who is busy messing around in the scrapyard. And then he looks inside of a bag next to it and he pulls out a globe, which starts to glow upon his touch. And he goes, "Krypton." So just then we hear a door slam and Lois runs over saying that someone's there. So Trask comes in and he asks them how they got in. And Lois is like, "Well, that's your problem." And Trask returns her snide comment with, "That's right. Getting out, however, is yours." And Clark goes, "Well, people know we're here." And Lois chimes in, like a brilliant person that she is, and says, "Like Superman, he's going to come looking for us." So Trask just smiles with his gang of men behind him and says, "Oh, I hope so. In fact, I'm counting on it." And Lois looks at Clark with worried eyes.
Like, oh crap.
We're in trouble.
So they don't actually show him put it in his pocket, but it's implied that he puts the globe in his pocket. And we said something about the beginning of the episode where it's like how feasible, what great pockets he must have, because what comes next is like, how did that globe survive, and how did Trask and the cronies put them in a plane and keep them there without noticing this giant, like,
without noticing,
bulbous thing,
this nice big thing. They didn't check him for weapons or anything.
And I always thought that was a little bit stretching my believability, but I'm glad he did.
And maybe he threw the globe up into space. Like, he could have thrown it up into space and went to get it later.
Ooh, good point. Maybe. Fan theory right here. You heard it first.
Maybe he buried it in the ground outside of the warehouse when he's like, "Hey guys, look over there." Put it in the ground.
Trask. I like it.
This image of Clark being a dog now and just doing dog things. I'm sorry now. I'm just okay.
Well, it explains a lot.
Tennis ball.
It's cosmic tennis ball. He has to hide it.
You want me to send you to the dark room?
Dark room?
You heard me.
No.
Well, then settle down.
So elsewhere in Lois's apartment, actually, Lucy is working out when we hear a knock on the door. And she hops over, not missing a beat of her workout, and she opens the door to reveal Jimmy, who introduces himself to her a couple times because the music is so loud. So she turns the music down while inviting him in. I don't know why she would invite him in because she doesn't really know who he is, but it's fine.
And Lois said, "Don't answer the door. Don't talk to anybody." And yet she answers the door and lets him on in.
Exactly.
Oh, Lucy.
Lucy. Bad, bad, bad. So she asks his name again, and he wonders if Lois had mentioned him. And Lucy thinks that she'd remember a guy named Jimmy. And, oh, poor Jimmy. He looks disappointed and he goes, well, I've been thinking about going by James. And so Lucy's response is spot on, asking if he came there to ask her opinion about his name. Jimmy don't got game, guys.
No, not at all. Poor
Oh,
Jimmy.
poor guy. So then he brings up that he's worried about her sister and that Lois hasn't picked up his calls and she won't answer her pager. Lucy doesn't really know, but she said she needed to make herself scarce. So Jimmy then goes, well, she can usually take care of herself. And then he just stands there like a dolt. Out of the complete blue, Jimmy goes, do you maybe want to go out sometime? Catch a movie or something? And Lucy slows down her workout and calls him out, saying he came over with this big thing about how her sister might be in trouble and then asks her out. And he's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And she shrugs and she's like, oh, okay. So what in the world? Was this like a sympathy acceptance? Would you have said yes to that? Because I'm gonna say no.
No. No.
Molly's like, I like Jimmy. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think they were trying to start something with Jimmy and Lucy here, and it would
We
have
just
been
never got to see it.
maybe cute. I don't know.
I mean, I would have loved to have seen that path had they gone down it. It was just seemed kind of random knowing that what I know is nothing really comes out of it. And this was so awkward. I just didn't, there wasn't much of a buildup other than his crush on Lucy. They didn't really interact.
From a photo.
So, yeah, from a photo. Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, we see a plane flying in the sky, and aboard is Trask, his crew, and Lois and Clark. And this is the scene, guys. Excited. Lois is staring dejectedly into space and admits,
It's a romance novel.
What?
My novel. It's about a woman that dies without ever finding her true love.
That's not gonna happen to you, Lois.
Yeah? Check it out, Clark. These guys look serious.
so she continues, okay, I told you, now you tell me. And he's like, tell you what? And she goes, what really happened between you and Kat the other night? Not that I care. It's just probably the best secret that you've got going. If we get out of this, you have got to raise your standards. So Clark looks at her, but is interrupted by Trask asking if the two of them are familiar with the scientific method. Woo woo. Yay, science. Clark responds, sorry, I'm a nerd, but that made me happy. Clark responds, advance a theory, submit it to a test. So Trask admits his theory. He says, my theory is that at least one of you knows how to contact this alien creature Superman, probably by like telepathic communication. And Lois is like, how do you plan to test it? And he continues to explain that if they suddenly are airborne without a parachute, they're going to figure out a way to get him to appear. And Clark tests him and asks what if he's wrong. So Trask replies, pushing back the frontiers of science is not without risk. Just then, Trask's little gang of men open the airplane doors and the two reporters look forward. Lois is in shock. She says, and what if Superman does show up? And then Trask says,
Does the worm need to know whether the fish is going to be fried or parboiled?
Trask snaps his fingers, and one of his men walks around him and grabs Lois. And Clark yells for Lois and then yells to take him instead. Lois is brave and goes, no, it's okay, I'll go. And Clark yells back, Lois, you don't understand. Obviously, we know it's less dangerous if Clark gets thrown out of the airplane, but she has a plan. She then says, I think I'm entitled to one last request. And she says, I want to kiss Clark goodbye. And then Clark's face, is it shock? Is it relief? They let them both go, and Lois walks over to him. And this is the part that I would rewind and press play on repeat for weeks. Lois leans in and kisses Clark, wrapping her hands behind his neck and then pulling away softly and whispering into his ear.
You take the one on the left.
And then she turns around and punches Trask in the face, and Clark moves forward, taking whoever he can get to. I thought that was a badass move by Lois Lane. Like,
what I liked is that after she says you take the one on the left, it takes Clark like 3 business days to be like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
Highly distracted. He was like, What just happened? Yeah, good point, because I noticed that too. For someone who's faster than a speeding bullet, he sure took a long time.
Took him a second. In the script, Lois actually volunteers to go because she had the plan.
Ooh,
I was like, ooh, that's pretty badass. She volunteers.
nice. That's cool. Then they grab her, and one of the dudes pulls out a gun. He shoots and hits Clark, but CK doesn't drop. Instead, the man throws Lois out of the plane while she screams, Clark! And Clark runs up behind her and jumps out after. So as Lois is falling, she is screaming.
Superman, if you can hear me, drop what you're doing and get over here now! Superman,
And this is where you hear the theme song swell as Clark gains control from his free fall and directs himself to Lois. Meanwhile, back on the plane, the man with the gun is like, the guy is hurt. I shot him. And then someone else picks up a flattened bullet, tells him to think again. Trask examines the bullet and admits that there's no trace of blood. But the guy won't give up. And he's like, I shot him. I saw it. Well, Trask doesn't believe it. He just says, you missed, and throws the piece of metal at the guy. And then we see Superman flying to the rescue. Trask and his men are now firing off missiles. But first, Superman has a job to do. So he picks up Lois, and she says, you really do read minds. But then Superman admits, like, not really. I just have really good hearing. So she tells Superman that they still have Clark and that he may be hurt. And Superman assures her that he'll go back for him. And as he drops her off safely on the ground, Lois looks forward to see a giant missile coming straight at them. So what happens next? Superman saves the day. He flies off just in time to catch the missile and throw it off into the sky where it explodes, and Superman is flung outward like a rag doll.
And we should mention that the missile was tracking, I think, Lois. I don't know how they put a tracker on her exactly, but they say that as soon as she goes out of the plane, they're like, we're tracking. And also this explosion that's just happened, Lois is like, she's worried that he's like dead, which I wanted to mention. This is like the third time she's seen him deal with an explosion and she still doesn't get it. He's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I know. He's literally invulnerable for the most part, except for kryptonite, but she doesn't know that yet. And we don't know that yet. So the next scene, we see Lois walking into the planet all disheveled. Her hair's a mess and her jacket's hanging off her shoulder. She is obviously in a daze. Perry runs up asking what happened, and Lois says before or after we were thrown out of the plane. But she says we before we were thrown out of the plane. Does she know that Clark jumped out of the plane too?
I think she's had a really tough few minutes. I think she's completely dazed here.
Okay.
Or she probably just assumes he was after, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah. I was just confused because I was like, she doesn't know that he got thrown out of the plane.
Yeah, I think she assumes. And plus, because that was the plan, that they would both get thrown out.
That makes sense. So then she asks Superman, is he all right? And Perry admits that they don't know and they're just trying to track down witnesses, and then starts asking about Clark. And as if on cue, Clark walks out of the elevator doors, adjusting his tie because he just changed back into his Clark attire. And Lois is so excited to see him. She screams his name and runs to him yelling, "You're alive!" And she gives him the biggest hug. And Clark is beaming. You could just see his wheels turning. What are we thinking is going through his mind here?
After their kiss, she has realized how hot he is. And now they will be together forever. I don't know.
Basically, yes. Basically, yes.
Well, in any case, she continues. If you're alive, that means Superman's alive. This story is getting better by the second. And Clark's face drops when he realizes she's probably not really in love with him. She just cares that Superman survived because he went back and saved Clark. Poor guy.
No.
So then we're back at the scene in the warehouse with all the UFOs, except this time it's empty. Clark and Lois walk in with Perry and Jimmy, but they're confused. And they're saying that it's weird that everything was here, UFOs. And Clark confirms Lois's story. Perry seems skeptical, but decides to follow along. And Clark admits that this really could actually be a bigger story than Superman. And Lois calls it Cosmic Watergate. Lois wants to go start writing, but Perry stops her.
Hold on. Now look, this is where I got to get off this bus you're driving.
We know what we saw.
No, you two are the best. You tell me something, I believe you. I can't let you write it, though.
Well, sure you can. Clark and I can corroborate each other.
Not when you're talking UFOs.
I thought it's interesting here. Did you guys catch it's the same day? They're wearing the same clothes that they were thrown out of the plane. And the last dialogue we got from Lois when they were in the warehouse earlier was really still skeptical about any of this being real stuff. And now Lois is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what we've lost. We've lost all these UFOs. I'm like, Lois, you didn't believe that these were real 2 hours ago. What has changed? I'm kind of strange, but.
And that was quick to get rid of a whole
warehouse. That is also true.
Very, very fast.
They were fast. I mean, one thing I was thinking is while Clark's looking at his spaceship, maybe Lois did see something that convinced her, and we just don't know what that was.
Maybe.
Or maybe just because Trask is so into it, like she believes that maybe it is real.
So Lois mentions to Clark, do you realize what we've lost here, Clark? And Clark flashes back to the space shuttle and admits, yeah, I do. Later on, at the Daily Planet, we see a hand diving into a bag of Whoppers. Do you guys like Whoppers?
Meh.
Yeah, they're all right. It wouldn't be my choice if I had a choice.
We know Lois likes chocolate, so it's her choice, apparently. So Lois is flinging them up in the air and trying to catch them in her mouth. Superman appears, and we hear, I hear you've been looking for me. Lois stops in her tracks, not moving a muscle, and she whispers under her breath that she's actually been looking for him all of her life. Everyone's looking for you, she says. And Superman admits that he knows that, and he also knows that she almost died because of it. So Lois says that it basically made that bungee jump she did last year seem kind of tame. So Superman promises that he will find the man that did this and stop him. And he says that's a promise, Lois. And Lois is shocked. She smiles and she's confused because he actually remembered her name.
You know my name, but I don't know yours.
Superman seems to have caught on.
And she asks him, where are you from? I mean, you're not from Kansas, that's for sure.
Huh.
Why would she pick that one? Weird.
Because he's the opposite of Clark, as she's already tried to emphasize. Superman and Clark are opposites.
That's true. And he admits that he comes from another planet, a place called Krypton. And she asks if she can write some of the stuff down, and he says that it is fine. And then, awkward alert, she goes, you seem to have all the parts of a man. And she's flustered and embarrassed and doesn't really know where to look. And Superman responds, for somebody who can't handle Cat coming onto him, he seems very confident. And he goes, well, I am a man, Lois, just like you're a woman. And she is thrown for a freaking loop. And I mean, I would be too. And she just goes, and like has a brain fart. And she continues on finally, saying that she's really glad that he's here, but why are you here? And his only response is kind of pathetic. He just says to help. She tries to get him to give her more of a quote. She kind of offers up a suggestion saying, I mean, if you said, I am here to fight for truth or justice. And Superman thinks about it and he goes, well, truth and justice. Yeah, that sounds good. You can use that. I thought
that's better than what they had in the script.
Oh, what did
Way
they have in the
better
script?
than what they had in the script. His reply is, can I get back to you? And she goes, well, I'm a reporter. I have deadlines. I have an editor. Don't they have newspapers on Krypton?
I think Superman flying in to give Lois an exclusive interview here is so sweet. I kind of wonder if it's just Clark feeling all like residually just kind of about her from earlier, or is he feeling bad about what he did to her in Never Ending Battle? And he's like, I'm gonna make up for what I did. I'm gonna give her this, because he could have given an exclusive to Clark and gotten famous over it. And instead, he's very sweetly gives one to her. And I just think it's a very nice thing to do right here.
Oh, Clark, you're such a good guy.
And she's the first person he tells about Krypton that we know of. He's just learned this for himself, and he goes to her and tells her, which I think is sweet.
Yeah, he didn't even call his parents.
We don't know if he did.
We know that we know of. Yeah, maybe he did. But so as they're standing there, we hear someone screaming for help in the background, and Superman shifts his attention to the scream. Lois looks up at him and says, "What is it?" And he admits that someone's in trouble. And Lois goes, "This is a job for Superman, right?" And he goes,
I'll be seeing you.
I hope so.
and that's our show. The end.
Was there anything you wanted to talk about further, like favorite moments or new things you guys noticed?
My favorite moment was the airplane scene. We haven't covered that at all. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that was one of those ones that they showed right after the pilot first aired, and they're showing you what's going to happen coming up on Lois and Clark in a few weeks. And they definitely focused on that kiss, teasing us into thinking something was going to happen more than just,
Yeah.
I had a little discussion point with this episode is that Martha just kind of casually in the pilot brings out his baby blanket in the Superman S, and he ends up using it. But that's actually going to be detrimental later on, because the ship, which is attached to Smallville, has the S crest on it, which if people from Bureau 39 put it together, will now know that this is Superman's ship. Whereas before, if they hadn't connected his S shield with the S shield on the ship, wouldn't know that this is connected to Superman. So it's almost like, oops, Clark. Yeah, you sabotaged yourself there, but
they could have just gone with a leopard print.
That ship. I still like the leopard print the best. Should have went with that. Darn it.
It would have been a different show.
Yes, for sure.
We're not the 8 p.m. show anymore. And
Lois and Clark, the new adventures of Leopard Man.
Oh, another discussion point I wanted to bring up is we know now that this is going to be the last episode for this version of Lucy Lane. And I think I learned at some point that the actress, she was going to be a main character on the show. She was even in the opening credits for these first few episodes. We think what happened was that Elizabeth Barondes got a role in a movie and decided to take that. So then we don't see Lucy again until season 2. And then, of course, it's another actress. And so I've been putting forth a lot of theories, in-show theories, that might make sense about what happened to Lucy after this episode. Did her date with Jimmy go that badly that she had to leave town?
Ooh.
It must have.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, too, they said that, she was new in town. So she must have just either been visiting Lois or maybe had just moved in, possibly. So she hadn't been there long.
No. Long enough that she hasn't met Jimmy yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, my theory here that I came up with. Okay. So she's got this music blasting and she's doing her workout. The neighbors complain. Lois gets a call from Mr. Trzaskowski. It's like, who was blasting this music? Lois is like, oh, that must have been my sister. Mr. Trzaskowski was like, how many people are on your lease? Lois is like, oh, crap. He's like, she is not allowed to live here. Get her out of here. Lucy is so pissed off that she decides to move to Gotham City, doesn't come back for an entire year. The end.
Actually, that's very plausible. I think that's a really good. Yeah, it could happen. I like that theory.
The only other thing that I noticed, and I don't remember where I read this, but the writer actually gave Clark his own birthday, the May 17th date. That's his actual birthday.
Aww.
Which I guess technically isn't Clark's birthday, but that's the day he arrives. So
is this Bryce Zabel or somebody else?
Bryce Zabel.
Yay.
Yep. So Bryce Zabel's birthday is the day Clark arrived.
This episode is really interesting because there's a bunch of things, bunch of little threads that are first seen here that will be seen again over and over again, at least once, sometimes twice, sometimes multiple times throughout the rest of the series. Like a bunch of seeds get planted in this episode that end up being very important. And I made a list. First is Jason Trask. He comes back. The Globe. First seen here, comes back. Clark's spaceship. The May 17th, 1966 date is first mentioned here and comes back in Tempest Fugitive. This is our first time with Jimmy trying to get a girlfriend. And boy, oh boy, does he try.
There's a few more of those.
This is the first time where Perry is giving someone some arguably poor relationship advice. This is Lois's first time of many falling from a great height. And we did briefly touch on this is the first time that Clark's sweating is going to be mentioned. That sounds kind of gross, but it is a thing. First time Clark cracking a code or unlocking a door using superpowers. First mention of Lois's novel. First of only 2 times, I think, but first of someone mentioning the quote or using the quote, if it looks like a duck. That comes back at least one more time way later. The first time where bad guys emerge in groups from the Daily Planet elevator. First mention of beepers. First reference to Lois liking chocolate, and first instance of jungle drums.
This is not the last time Lois gets thrown from a plane either. Or falls from a plane. I guess technically she falls.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one. So, planes, Lois and planes and helicopters. Maybe just don't get on one because yikes.
You got a flying guy right here who will take you literally anywhere. You don't need to do
exactly.
Well, when planning this podcast, we decided on a bunch of things that we want to focus on in every episode. But first of all, we actually have a new special feature this week, and we're calling it Acronym of the Week. Back during this show's initial run, if you dialed up and got online, you were probably paying by the hour, and you were at the mercy of your phone line being available for limited amounts of time. So when discussing your favorite episodes and things with fellow folks in forums or in chat rooms, you just didn't have time to type out chip off the old Clark. So you type COTOC. And home is where the hurt is became HIWTHI or Hiwithy. It always took newbies a while to figure out the acronyms, but after you'd been around a while, you'd be using them too. So to bring back some of those memories, for those of you who were there, we'll be talking about a different acronym almost every week until we run out. Today's acronym is WAFF, and I thought it was interesting. Julie pronounces it WAF, whereas I always pronounced it WAF, which I think I like Julie's better. But what it really matters is what it stands for, which is warm and fuzzy feelings, WAFF. Any scene on Lois and Clark that was cute, sweet, lovey-dovey, any scene that made you feel just really good inside qualified as a WAF. WAF plural was WAFs, and a moment full of WAFs was WAFy. And I thought the most waffy moment of this episode is when Clark is talking to his parents about being adopted by them and how they'll always be his real parents and he'll always love them. It's just so sweet. I can guess.
It's so cute.
I can guess Jen's waffy moment, though.
Oh, yeah.
What's your waffy moment, Jen?
There's a couple of them. I mean, obviously the airplane scene is pretty cute. It's kind of fake, so I don't know if it actually qualify, but it gives me the warm and fuzzy feelings. So qualifies for me.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, when she runs to him too at the end and, gives him a big hug, that made me feel happy too, because she cares that he's there, whether it's that Superman's alive or not. She did care that he survived. So that gave me the wafts.
Yes. I'll say when Martha's talking about how Clark was adorable in his little diaper thing. She's like, his little diaper thing is so cute. That was adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, our companion of the animals, were there any four-legged, feathered, or scaly friends in this episode?
There was one dog who buried himself into the ground and then shook himself. So there were fish in Lois's apartment that Lucy was looking into. And that's all we got this episode.
This tank is Julie's white whale when it comes to props.
I want this tank so badly. I have looked for years for a tank like this.
So if anyone knows where Julie can find the fish tank in question, please let us know.
So one of my jobs is to talk about any real life people, places, or events that were mentioned in any episode. In this one, Perry name dropped Elvis Presley again, but we also got a mention of Anita Wood. Anita Wood was a singer who was born in 1938, and in 1957, she met Elvis, and they ended up dating for 4 or 5 years. And people thought they would eventually get married, but as we know, they went their separate ways. Anita ended up marrying football player Johnny Brewer in 1965, and Elvis famously married Priscilla in 1967. Perry also mentioned the Colonel.
If you want to be the king, you better listen to the Colonel.
Colonel Tom Parker, born in 1909, he managed Elvis's career and personal life beginning in the mid-50s, and he was an interesting character. One thing I found funny about him, though, was that he came up with a bunch of ways to make money off Elvis, including merchandise, and one of the things he came up with was making buttons that said, "I love Elvis," but also making buttons that said, "I hate Elvis," and so something for everyone. But this Tom Parker, he had a lot of shady dealings. He took a huge percentage of Elvis's money, more than any other manager at the time would be getting from a client. And he did not always act in Elvis's best interest. And it seems Elvis almost sometimes achieved a lot of his success despite the Colonel's actions. So I'm not sure if Perry, we really want to be listening to the Colonel. Judging by this guy, I don't think so. Julie, did you notice any goofs or bloopers in this episode?
I did notice a few. When Clark is talking about his adoption article on the screen, he's actually typing out things about the Hollywood sign. So absolutely nothing about adoption there on that screen. Unless people are getting adopted around the Hollywood sign. I don't know. I guess it's possible. Maybe.
I'm going back tonight and rewatching that.
And there's a few times you can see the wires. One of them I noticed was when the paper wad is like floating above the trash can. You can see the wire kind of holding it up. And then you can also see some wires when he is floating at the dig spot, when he's kind of floating out of the hole. You can kind of see a couple wires. And then there was another thing that I noticed when he is flying down in the sky. It's definitely a green screen issue because his foot completely disappears for a second. That one is very noticeable. And it bugs me every time I see this episode.
No, it's another superpower of his. We just never hear about it. He sometimes turns invisible.
Or it's like hiding behind a cloud, maybe, and they forgot to add the cloud. Who knows? But it's just gone.
Jen, what is your vote for the wildest excuse Clark makes in this episode?
I don't feel like we've gotten into the wild excuse territory just yet. The one I kind of thought was kind of lame is that when they're leaving the interview, Clark says he has to go because he doesn't feel well. And then Lois sees Superman flying.
That he wants to go take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not wild by any means, but
it weirdly Lois is fine with him like going away. And
sure, don't work. Don't help at all.
He's
go
not,
take a nap.
We know he's not sick or tired, probably really. So yeah, I think that works.
We need to get to the cheese of the month club because I'm bored with his excuses so far. I have to go. I don't feel well.
Return this tape.
Yeah. I have my dentist appointment.
My Barber Waldo.
So now we come to the end of our episode discussion. And at this point, we like to give the episode a grade on a scale from A+ to F-. And actually, so I gave this episode an A-. It has some problems, but you know what I really like about this one is that it almost feels like a second pilot. The pilot gave us all this, the costume and who these people are. And then this episode sets up so much for the rest of the series. It also has so many sweet moments. It has Lois being nice. It has some sweet Smallville scenes. It's got their first kiss. And it sets up not the next episode, but it sets up a future episode with some plot points that we're going to get resolved in about, episode 8 coming up. Even though there's some flaws, I think overall it's a really good one. So A- for me.
I gave it a solid B+. So I think we're pretty much on the same line there. Solid episode. Like you said, very much had a lot of information like a pilot. Good Lois and Clark scenes. Lois, again, like you said, was nice in this one, wasn't mean to him. And of course I got to give it that plus because of the kiss was added in there. You got some origin story, which is good. It had a lot for everybody to do. Like Jimmy had a good scene, Lucy had a good scene, Kat had a good scene. So yeah, B+.
I'm going with an A because obviously this is a special episode for me. This is the one that hooked me in, hook, line, and sinker. It caught me with the kiss. It kept me. It's got a good storyline. Basically, everything that you guys already mentioned. It's got a good storyline for just about everyone. And I love the villain. Like, Jason Trask is a good villain. If we can't have Lex Luthor, give me Trask any day of the week. So I give it an A.
Now, don't go away because today we have not one, but 2 extra special features. First, I'm going to be talking about Lois and Clark's first season ratings, and then Julie has a special report. So today I am going to be talking briefly about Lois and Clark's first season and the competition that it faced. I would like to give a shout out to the TVRatingsGuide.com and TVTango.com, where I got a lot of my information. So in September of 1993, ABC had put Lois and Clark on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. And Sunday nights was one of the most, if not the most, watched nights of the week. Like, so many households would tune in on Sunday nights. So this was a great night for Lois and Clark, although it did have some competition. Over on CBS, there was Murder, She Wrote, which at that point was still a top 10 hit, despite having been on for 9 seasons at that point. And over on NBC, there was another brand new show, which we've mentioned before, seaQuest DSV, famously produced by Steven Spielberg. And if you preferred comedy, over on Fox, you had the show Martin and the new sitcom Living Single. Lois and Clark and seaQuest DSV, though, were the new dramas, and they were definitely compared against each other. Both had bigger budgets than your average drama. Both had a big name attached. seaQuest had Spielberg, Lois and Clark had, Superman. And both shows had sci-fi elements. Also, both shows had been given substantial episode orders before the season even began. Lois and Clark had a 13-episode order, and seaQuest had a 22. On their premiere night, seaQuest, despite having what critic Richard Zoglin called a dreary pilot, made a big splash with a rating of 17.8. And it took over all the rest of the competition. Murder, She Wrote earned a 14.1, and Lois and Clark came in at 11.2. And if you're wondering what these numbers mean, just Google Nielsen ratings. Basically, it was a descriptor of how many households were tuned into any given programming block. And you can learn more about what those numbers meant, how they were tracked, how they tracked what people watched, and all that. 2 weeks later, when the 3 shows all faced each other a second time, Murder, She Wrote took back the top spot with a rating of 17.3. seaQuest came in at 12.5 and Lois and Clark at 10.2. Even though Lois and Clark's numbers were still lower than seaQuest's, what's significant is that our show's numbers only dropped a little bit, whereas seaQuest took a huge dive from its first week. On the night Lois and Clark aired its 3rd episode, the gap between LNC and seaQuest shrank even further. LNC stayed at 10.2, but seaQuest dropped to 10.9. Then, the week of October 24th, Lois and Clark's episode 6, I've Got a Crush on You, when that one aired, Lois and Clark actually beat seaQuest by a small margin, but still a win. And the two shows continued to jockey for second place for the rest of the season, sometimes even coming in at a tie. By the end of the season, May 1994, Lois and Clark tied for 60th with Living Single out of all the programs over all the networks, which is roughly 112 shows that didn't all air at the same time, but like some were fall shows, some were spring shows, but yeah. And Sequest tied for 50th. Those stronger ratings early on were probably what tipped it to having a higher number here. Meanwhile, Murder, She Wrote sat happily at number 11. But
thanks, Mom. My mom watched that show.
Oh, no.
Rude.
But thanks to Lois and Clark's more consistent numbers and the fact that, yes, it did beat Sequest more often than it was expected, it did get renewed and would live to see another season. Yay!
All right. Because Jimmy was interested in dating Lois's sister Lucy in this episode, I thought it might be interesting to dive into a brief summary of the history of their relationship throughout the years. I'm one who, for some reason, has always gravitated more towards collecting Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane comics or Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen comics rather than just the regular Superman comics. In those Silver Age comics, such as Superman's pal, Lucy and Jimmy have an on-again, off-again romantic relationship with many ups and downs. So this was not a first for them in this show. Lucy was first introduced in Superman's pal number 36 in April of 1959. She was at that time a flight attendant, met Jimmy, and later on in issue number 100 in March of 1967, the couple married in a very strange plot. This was intended to be a permanent change to the characters' relationship, but the editor at the time sadly changed his mind at the last minute and had the writer change the ending to include a sudden annulment of the marriage. Womp womp. Poor Jimmy.
Aww.
A quick rundown of what happens in this very strange comic is that, as you probably guessed, Jimmy and Lucy get engaged. Miss G, I'm going to call her Miss G, she's the ex-wife of Mr. Mixyas-Pitalik. I cannot pronounce her name. I don't think you're supposed to be able to pronounce her name, but I'll give you a spelling. It is Gzptlsnz. So, Miss G it is. Miss G finds out about the wedding and is super jealous because she's crushing hard on Jimmy. So, she basically becomes the wedding destroyer of this comic book. In these comics, Jimmy is super popular because he's best friends with Superman. So they're talking about his upcoming wedding on the news and the fact that Supergirl is not going to be able to attend. Well, Miss G sees this and decides this is her chance to foil the wedding. She disguises herself as Supergirl so she can attend the wedding rehearsal and give a gift to Lucy. A lipstick that basically is cursed, so whenever Jimmy and Lucy kiss, Superman turns into a mole man and burrows into the earth. Here we go with the burrowing into the earth.
What?
Super weird. Silver Age comics are super weird. Anyway, they get married. It keeps happening, and they finally realize why Superman keeps turning into this mole man and decide it's best to annul the marriage to save him. Alrighty then. Jimmy doesn't seem too sad about it either. At the end of the comic, he's just like, okay, now where's my little black book of girls' addresses, girls' phone numbers? I'm just
Jimmy.
like, he
Jimmy
doesn't seem to
Jim.
really care. And then,
Yeah.
Lucy's gone off on her own. But anyway, in most comic iterations, after several years of on and off dating, Jimmy eventually would break up with Lucy, and then she'd move out of Metropolis. So there's definitely some history of dating. And even in the Supergirl movie in 1984, Lucy and Jimmy were also dating in that. And then in the mid-90s, Lucy marries some other reporter from the Daily Planet, not Jimmy. Sorry, Jimmy. And that's about it. If you
Wow.
visit our socials, maybe I'll share some of the weird comic book pages because, everybody wants to see weird Superman mole man burrowing into the earth.
Well, now I do.
I
Because
do.
it is ridiculous.
So maybe they were onto something in the show. Like they were going to start dating. And then
And then because they didn't, he could just never find a girlfriend that would stay with him for longer than an episode.
Exactly.
I guess not. I guess not. Nope. Jimmy does not have luck at all with girls.
Season 5, man, that's where it would have happened.
Yeah.
If only.
With his soulmate, which went nowhere in that episode.
Course, that girl.
That's right.
Whatever her name was.
Maybe it was Lucy. Maybe
wasn't she a redhead? I think she was a
undercover.
redhead.
Lucy in a wig.
I mean, it could have been Lucy. We don't know what Lucy looked like at that point. She keeps changing.
Lucy number 3.
That's true. It could have been. Sure. Old comics. Jimmy dates the random weird girls from other planets and like just the imp from the 7th dimension. Like,
yeah, that made it.
Jimmy's
who he dated
Jimmy's
on
a
here
player.
pretty tame. Like, didn't get too weird on Lois and Clark.
I know there was one that he was dating some like 20-foot like woman. I'm just like, what? These comics are weird, but I love them.
Thank you so much for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe/follow this podcast on the platform of your choosing. And if you're feeling extra generous, please rate and review us. If you're following along on our rewatch journey, our next episode will be Season 1, Episode 4, I'm Looking Through You. That episode will be out in 2 weeks, which will be our new release pattern going forward. 1 episode every 2 weeks. We hope you'll join us for that.
Wait a minute. How do I find you?
You can find us on Instagram or Blue Sky as Folks Forever. That's FOLCSFOREVER. Or you can visit our website at folksforeverpod.wixsite.com/podcast. And until next time, please enjoy this amazing little ditty.
Agents bursting in the door, no knock, no clue. Questions flying fast like who's who and who do you do? They had papers that looked like secrets cut and paste. But Lois knew the ink reeked of pure bad taste. Clark played coy, his heart pounding in disguise. But you can't ignore the fire in Lois' eyes. They were cornered, but didn't crumble under roar. They saw the play, they've been through this before.